Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Layoffs at BPTT confirmed. This story takes the lead in our 1010th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 18th December 2020. Details when we return. Welcome back. Trinidad and Tobago's largest natural gas producer, BPTT, has officially announced how many employees have lost jobs as part of the company's restructuring. CNC3's Joel Julian tells us exactly what the figure is, and also how much the Inter-American Development Bank intends to provide to this region for COVID-19 vaccines.
BPTT has confirmed that as many as 149 people were either severed from the organization or took voluntary separation packages between September and November of this year. In a news release, BPTT said while its frontline staff was not impacted, its office-based roles were reduced by 25% globally. TNT saw 149 people leave the organization. BPTT said, "We are deeply saddened that we are unable to take all of our employees with us on our journey as we reinvent BP. The global environment and the changing energy demands have required us to make fundamental changes to how we are structured and to our operating model. And sadly, that means we will be saying farewell to some of our colleagues and friends." The Inter-American Development Bank has announced that it will mobilize $1 billion to help Latin America and Caribbean countries acquire and distribute COVID-19 vaccines. The funds will complement the $1.2 billion in resources that the IDB has committed in 2020, as well as other funds already programmed for 2021 to help countries save lives through public health measures. Endeavour Holdings Limited, the company that owns the property where Movie Tong Shogunus was previously located, has recorded a decrease in net rental income of $9 million for the half year ended October 31st when compared to the same period last year. Endeavour Holdings chairman John Aboud said, "This decrease in revenue was due to extended concessions granted primarily to tenants in Price Plaza Mall. On November 20th, Movie Tong Shogunus permanently shut its doors after 10 years. Movie Tong was one of the anchor tenants of Endeavour Holdings' Price Plaza North property. Mr. Aboud stated, "The company is exploring options for replacement tenants and/or new use and is also awaiting legal advice on this matter." Joel Julian, CNC3. Business Watch.
Over in Antigua, the government there is bracing for its toughest challenge in the months to come as the country wages an ongoing battle to curtail the spread of COVID-19. According to Prime Minister Gaston Brown, the next 3 months are going to be crucial. More in this ABS Andy LeBird report.
The risk of importing more COVID-19 infections is increasing as Antiguan and Caribbean airports get busy during the winter months. Government is not taking any chances, and so the state of emergency will remain in place until the end of March. It's the legislative power government needs to maintain the curfew or introduce other measures if necessary in response to any changes to the current situation.
Because we have a responsibility to protect the population. And that is what a state of emergency is all about, to manage these threats to the country, to the people, and to make sure we put the necessary systems in place so the state of emergency empowers us to be flexible, to be nimble, to put systems in place in order to protect the population.
For the most part, Antigua and Barbuda's cases have been kept well below alarming levels. Active cases have not exceeded 10 since early October. But all that could be lost, Prime Minister Brown says, if we fail to come together as a nation over the next 3 months.
The management of COVID within the next 90 days is critical. And if we do not come together collectively as a nation and to bear the collective responsibility of managing this menacing virus, then we run the risk of eroding all the gains that we would have made. And by the way, now it doesn't matter what happened for the last several months. It is how well we do in the upcoming months.
But there's been pushback from the opposition, especially where the curfew is concerned. Health Minister Sir Malwin Joseph scoffed at the opposition leader's suggestions that the activities of his organization have suffered.
The people of Antigua and Barbuda have now seen why the member of St. East and St. Luke's, parroting the position of the leader of his party, who says that the state of emergency is unnecessary. Because they can't. Papi showed himself, go round and round. You want loudspeakers to do what? To tell the poor people and them to strike? That is what you all want. So you want political meeting in a crisis. You want political meeting when people are getting sick from COVID?
Andy Library reporting for ABS News.
The meeting of former presidents of Guyana was held at State House on Tuesday in the absence of former President David Granger, who had asked that the caucus be deferred. HGP's Wendell Badri reports.
Notwithstanding his request to have the meeting deferred to a later date until an agreed agenda has been drafted, in tandem with addressing a number of issues currently in the public domain, the proposed meeting of former presidents by current head of state Irfan Ali got underway at State House on Tuesday, while former President David Granger was absent. In attendance were former Presidents Bharat Jagdeo, Donald Ramatar, and Samuel Hines, in addition to current President Irfan Ali. While Ali had announced the meeting publicly at the launch of the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, former President David Granger acknowledged the receipt of an invitation to the proposed meeting by the President, but stated that there is public concern about certain governmental actions, including the high rates of deaths as a result of the pandemic, unwarranted dismissals of public servants, harassment of Elections Commission officials, and human rights violations, which can have consequences for Ghana's short, medium, and long-term national development. Granger further emphasized in his letter that it would be a huge public disappointment for the proposed high-level meeting to take place hurriedly, in an unorganized, unplanned manner, and without a predictable prospect of progress or success. Granger made it clear that it would be a blunder to ignore the legitimate concerns of a significant section of the population and the aspirations of the majority of our people, especially those enduring the effects of the pandemic. He recommended, therefore, that the meeting be deferred until these important issues could be satisfactorily settled. Leading up to the event, several political analysts, the likes of Dr. Henry Jeffrey, Hamilton Green, Rickford Burke, among others, publicly advised that Granger should not attend the meeting, given that there was no balance. That is, Granger being the only former president from APNU AFC, while 3 former presidents are representatives of the PPPC, in addition to the current president, who also represents the PPPC. They also stated that the president should ensure that a proper structure is in place for meaningful dialogue to take place. President Ali stated that the objective of the meeting is for the former presidents to present their perspectives and to start dialogue which will help guide the country's developmental agenda. Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Barbados has fallen 2 places in the United Nations Development Programme's UNDP's Human Development Index HDI. In the ranking contained in the just-launched UNDP Human Development Report for 2020, Barbados and the Bahamas are tied in the 58th position, with Trinidad and Tobago next in line with a ranking of 67 out of 189 countries. According to the UNDP's website, the Human Development Index HDI is a summary measure of average achievements in key dimensions of human development: a long and healthy life, being knowledgeable, and have a decent standard of living. The HDI is the geometric mean of normalized indices for each of the 3 dimensions. Barbados' life expectancy stands at 79.2%, 15 expected years of schooling, and a gross national income per capita at $14,936. In 2019, Barbados had a birth life expectancy of 79.1%, 15 expected years of schooling, and a gross national income per capita at $15,912. Meantime, Barbadians should take COVID-19 vaccines seriously, but government also has to do extensive public education, says St. Philip North MP Dr. Sonia Brown. The medical practitioner called for public education on the issue and also urged colleagues in the House of Assembly to lead by example in showing the public that the pandemic was not over. She was speaking on Tuesday during debate on the Barbados Humanitarian Service Award Bill 2020, which will see frontline workers being awarded for their work during the crisis. Brown, who is chairman of committees, said, "It's okay to tell the Barbadian public to take the vaccine. Don't mind the rumors. It is for your own good. But we have to spend a lot of time on education. It cannot be only government policy. We have to coordinate well with the medical professionals so that we have an educational system in place before we bring information to the public." She said there were people who have real fears of vaccination, basically because they don't understand it, and we need to address that. Belize Police has set up a coronavirus task force to look into violations of the COVID-19 public health regulations. Commissioner of Police laid out its context at an exchange with the local media.
Today I have tasked each of the formation commanders to put together a COVID task force. The COVID task force is going to be a team of police officers who are going to focus within each of the different formations on the enforcement of the quarantine regulations. So they will be moving around, including the villages, looking for violations with a view to see how we can deal with those persons who continue to defy and put us all at risk.
Sir, when will the task force be activated?
That will be today. I have given instruction. I will go on to put that in place effective today.
Who makes up the task force, and just for some clarity, their responsibilities is just receiving these calls and going out to investigate or sending out officers?
The task force will be made of police officers from different units, and I'm going to ensure that we have GSU among the task force. Again, with a view to ensure there is strict compliance. And, people have the tendency of doing illegal things, and when police come to deal with the situation, they act away and start to make noise and start a video and get the public on their side against the police. We're not going to take heed to that. We have to understand. You're doing nonsense, the police will come for you. And the task force will be specifically used to address COVID-19 regulation. That will be the only task, nothing else.
Does this take away from the number of officers that has to do the day-to-day policing on the ground?
Yes, it will take away from the number of officers that has to do the day-to-day policing. But our greatest threat right now is COVID-19. COVID-19 is a threat to our national security. It's a threat to our economy. It is a threat in every respect of our lives. And so we have to make it a priority. So even though it's going to take away from our core policing function, it is going to help us significantly to address this plaguing issue of the COVID-19 virus.
Sir, but what are you guys doing at the bus terminals? We still see significant gatherings, no regard for social distancing.
Well, that is one thing the task force is going to be dealing with as well. I have already tasked the commanders that we must look at the bus terminals. We must look at the stores, because we're getting complaints that stores are packed to capacity. We have to look at in Belize City, the seawall, and in other municipalities, the parks where people continue to go and gather and socialize in the evening time. And as well as looking at those persons who are hosting these birthday parties and these baby showers and wedding.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.